Misery is a horror thriller film that came out on November 30th, 1990, directed by Rob Reiner. The film stars Kathy Bates and James Cannon. James Cannon plays a famous writer who writes a famous series called the Misery series. Kathy Bates plays an obsessed fan of James Cannon's character, Paul Sheldon. Now I'll give a quick summary of the movie. After a serious car crash, novelist Paul Sheldon, played by James Cannon, is rescued by former nurse Annie Wilkins, played by Kathy Bates. Annie Wilkins claims to be Paul Sheldon's biggest fan. Annie brings him to her remote cabin to recover from his injuries, where her obsession takes a dark turn when she discovers Sheldon is killing off her favorite character from his novels. As Sheldon devises plans for escape, Annie grows increasingly controlling, even violent, as she forces the author to shape his writing to suit her twisted fantasies. In this movie, suspense is a key factor. Watching this movie, you get a great sense of suspense of not knowing what will happen to Paul Sheldon. Early on in the film, we don't really know what Annie is capable of. We see glimpses of what type of person she is, but never know how far she'll go until it gets to that point. The feeling of not knowing what's going to happen to Paul is really what gives the suspense. The best thing about this film was Kathy Bates' performance as Annie Wilkins. She did such an amazing job acting as this crazy superfan who is so dangerous. The way she delivered her lines was so impactful in the performance and really stuck fear into me. Also, the way she used her facial expressions to show the twisted side of Annie was so amazing. Another thing that I loved about the film was how simple it was. The simplicity of the film really worked for me and didn't make the film seem too complicated or chaotic. It was a perfectly balanced film. The only thing is that I wish this film had more of Annie Wilkins. She is by far the most interesting character, and I would love to have seen more of her in the film. Maybe more of like her backstory or something like that. The feeling of isolation is a big part of this film. Watching the film, we really see how isolated Paul was. He was taken without knowing and trapped inside a house with a crazy person. Paul must have been feeling so scared. He also probably felt so isolated from the world, not being able to leave this house for so long. I really love the title of this movie because the title of this movie is the theme for the movie, Misery. We see the misery that Paul goes through in the whole movie. First, the physical misery that he has, with the pain that he must have been in from his injuries from the car crash. Also, we also see the psychological misery with being made to stay inside a house and write a book he did not want to write. I like the ways in the film that we see Paul try to escape. For example, every day Annie would give Paul pills to take for his pain. Instead of taking the pills, he hides them and plans to use them against her. He tells Annie he wants to have dinner with her, and while having dinner he puts the pills in her drink, trying to kill her. But sadly the plan doesn't work and she spills the spiked drink. Another thing that Paul does is try to pretend to fall in love with Annie and try to get some trust from her and use it to escape. This was the plan that ultimately got him out of the house. He catches her off guard and kills her, freeing himself from the house. Misery, directed by Rob Reiner, is one of the best horror/thriller films of all time. It's a film that is scary, disturbing, violent, hopeless, and crazy. The film grossing at the box office was $61.3 million. A fun fact about the film is that Bette Midler turned down the role of Annie. Misery, in my opinion, is one of the greatest film adaptations to come out of a Stephen King horror novel. The film is a great film that I would recommend to any horror/thriller fan out there. It's a must watch. I give this film a 4 out of 5 Alien.